Superintendent, I was just stretching my calves on the windowsill. Isometric exercise. Care to join me?
Why can't you make a long-form video without bringing up personal traumas anymore?
Wait, no, that's not supposed to be there. What?
Care to join me?
Why can't you make a long-form video without bringing up personal traumas anymore?
No, I didn't put that there. I didn't record. What? No. What is this? What's going on here? I don't.
WandaVision made me feel a lot of complicated things, and if you followed my channel and or life for a bit, you can probably guess why. Its story, after all, is one of trauma, grief, gaslighting, and a dash of superheroes, and hey, look at that, that's a DQP bingo. Marvel Studios is a machine that myself and many others have compared to, and forgive me for using a food metaphor, cinematic fast food.
Delightfully devilish, Seymour.
And that's not necessarily a dunk. Fast food is fine sometimes. I can walk into an Alaskan McDonald's and eat the same McNuggets that I'd be able to eat at a McDonald's in Seattle, or Miami, or Los Angeles. When I walk into a McDonald's, I know what I'm gonna get. It's rarely remarkable food, but, you know, it's pretty good. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is the same way for the most part. When I walk into a theater to watch an MCU movie, I know what I am going to get. The characters are going to make snarky one-liners, there's going to be a 3-act struggle where the hero or heroes doubt their abilities before assuming their strongest forms. They're usually going to culminate in an explosive finale that's absolutely going to destroy a city/town/airport. There's going to be a post-credit stinger or two teasing the next movies. The team-up movies are going to have that moment where one of the fan faves shows up or a fan theory gets confirmed and the audience loudly claps. All that stuff. An average moviegoer can walk into a Marvel movie and expect to get all of that in some form or another. Usually. A few Marvel movies are remarkably excellent, and a couple of them are remarkably bad, but they all still generally fall into the same pretty good quality scale. You're still getting a Marvel meal. Like, you know, sometimes you walk into a McDonald's and the McRib's back, or the fries are fresher than usual, or maybe the ice cream machine's broken, or they put the wrong condiments on your burger. But generally, it is still a McDonald's meal at the core. I think WandaVision threw a lot of people off because, for the first few episodes, it rejected a lot of those expectations. Its writing was either deliberately vintage campy or absolutely unnerving. And in a normal movie or show, that'd be, you know, pretty intriguing, but coming after the Marvel Studios logo, it feels deliciously wrong. Like you've walked up to the counter and ordered McNuggets, but they give you, like, Lucky Wishbone fried chicken. Come on, DQP. Nobody outside of Anchorage, Alaska knows what Lucky Wishbone is. You can't just name drop that. It's a local restaurant, okay? Support your local businesses. They need your help. And the more you can do it outside of stuff like Uber Eats, the better. My point is, WandaVision felt a little strange when it debuted. It did not feel as much like a piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least not at first. It played with the fourth wall and unnerved in ways that normal blockbusters don't often do. So let's talk about sitcoms.
Superintendent, I hope you're ready for mouth-watering hamburgers.
I thought we were having steamed clams.
No, I said steamed hams. That's what I call hamburgers.
Sitcoms, or situation comedies, have a set style to them, and I think that most people could recognize one if they saw one. They typically revolve around a recurring cast of characters that play off of each other in consistent ways, often using the same sets, music, and gags. They are easy to produce quickly, and they're comfortable to watch because, as an audience, we can count on characters to act predictably and expect the status quo to return to its normal state by the time the episode draws to a close. Again, that's not necessarily a dunk. I too have vegged out and binged Parks and Rec before. It is nothing to be ashamed of.
Do you think a depressed person could make this? No.
I'm going to massively oversimplify this for the purposes of this video, but many sitcoms of the 50s through the 70s habitually portrayed the lives of upper to middle class families with a focus on stability and good old nuclear family values. Over time, as pop culture skewed more cynical in the 80s and 90s, sitcoms reflected this cynicism by way of programs like Seinfeld or The Simpsons. Hey, that's where the steamed hams bit came from. These shows still had some heart, but they were relatively mean and sardonic, often using their snarky and dysfunctional characters as a mirror of how the shows perceived domestic American society, especially in contrast to how previous, more optimistic sitcoms had perceived domestic American society. There is something outwardly uncanny about the optimism and cleanliness of suburban life as portrayed in older sitcoms, and WandaVision is not the first piece of entertainment to take advantage of that. You can see it in works as recent as Get Out to as far back as The Stepford Wives, if not further. To many modern eyes, the pleasantness and homogeneity of older suburban life is unsettling, which is why you see many more recent sitcoms focusing on more diverse families, or foregoing a suburban setting entirely in favor of large apartments or workplaces. This is not a negative, it's just an example of how pop culture has changed and evolved over the decades. There is a reason that Get Out opens on Lakeith Stanfield's character walking through a prim and proper American suburb and openly commenting on how unsafe it feels.
It's crazy. You got me out here in this creepy, confusing ass suburb. Girl, I'm serious though. I feel like a sore thumb out here.
Family-oriented sitcoms have changed because families have changed. Raising a nuclear family is not something that's realistic for most modern American TV watchers, and I don't think they're really the de facto king of comfort watches in the American TV landscape anymore. When I think back to working an office job and talking entertainment with coworkers, remember that? I'd rather not, but here we are. I think of people talking less about sitcoms or comedies and more so about either prestige-y premium TV a la Stranger Things or Game of Thrones, or, well, Disney blockbusters about superheroes or Jedi Knights. Like sitcom television, Marvel is massively popular because it is comfortable. Most people know what they are going to get when they walk into a Marvel movie. Which brings us to WandaVision.
You call hamburgers steamed hams?
Yes, it's a regional dialect.
Uh-huh. What region?
Upstate New York?
Really? Well, I'm from Utica, and I've never heard anyone use the phrase steamed hams.
Oh, not in Utica. No, it's an Albany expression.
I see.
A common compliment I've seen surrounding WandaVision, especially early on, is that it was bold and weird, which struck me as a bit odd because, as mentioned earlier, setting a more unsettling kind of story in a picturesque American suburb is not in and of itself a new concept. However, I'll concede that it is a bold and weird direction for a Marvel property, especially a Marvel Studios property. People do not hear the and expect to see a 30-minute tribute to I Love Lucy or Bewitched. The MCU has an interesting quirk where writers can map almost any genre to its storytelling formula and still get an enjoyable, if predictable, Marvel movie. Like, while it's accurate to say that Thor Ragnarok is a comedy, or Black Panther is an epic, or Guardians of the Galaxy is a space western, or Winter Soldier is a political thriller, or Incredible Hulk is garbage, they're all still Marvel movies that follow the Marvel formula that I brought up in the introduction. Their genre, collectively, is closer to a generic Marvel label than it would be to phrases like comedy, western, or thriller. And while WandaVision keeps a facade of mystery box sitcom horror up for the first, 3 episodes, that's a phrase, it still hews closer to that generic Marvel label, especially after episode 4 drops a lot of the mystery and reveals what both Wanda and Sword are really up to. The sitcom horror is really cool, and it's a really effective way of exploring Wanda's grief and how it affects her relationships with others, but at the end of the day, there's gonna be a Marvel villain who shows up and gets into a big CGI beam fight with the hero, with secret agent type characters making snarky banter on the side as the plot progresses. While it was insanely cool to me that we had an MCU property with so little action in the first few episodes, a part of me was almost willing to bet money that it was going to end with the Marvel fireworks display, and lo and behold, I should have made the bet. This is not in and of itself a complaint, rather just an acknowledgement and demonstration that as much as WandaVision plays with genre conventions, both within the sitcom space and the MCU blockbuster space, It is still a Marvel-style program at its core, and a Marvel-style program need not be thematically boring. Plenty of Marvel movies have explored interesting ideas while still adhering to the structure that's made them successful. Winter Soldier was an interesting exploration of what being a patriot really means. Guardians Volume 2 delved into deeply personal family psychology without ignoring factors like abuse or neglect. Black Panther did not shy away from how a world history of colonialism affects politics both at a personal level and at the level of an advanced kingdom. But while the above examples are interesting and great movies, they are still whiz-bang Marvel movies with similar structures, story beats, and set pieces. In that sense, the sitcom genre fits Marvel better than I think people would give it credit for, because they both rely on a comfortable status quo that characters consistently return to, be it in a literal narrative sense or in a broader structural sense. Like, obviously, The Blip is a giant world-shaking event within the MCU's continuity, but half the universe disintegrating into dust did not stop either Infinity War or Endgame from being structurally similar to other Marvel movies. Different though they may seem, sitcoms and Marvel movies are comfortable to watch. Usually.
I don't feel so good.
That's a part of their popular appeal. So let's talk about how that affects Wanda.
Yes, and you call them steamed hams despite the fact they are obviously grilled.
You know, one thing I should... Excuse me for 1 second.
Of course.
As explicitly shown in WandaVision's 8th episode, Wanda grew up in war-torn Sokovia, where DVDs of American sitcoms were a source of comfort for her as a violent battle raged outside. We see in this episode that as she faces trauma after trauma throughout her life, sitcoms remain a small piece of stability, something she can watch and predict and, to an extent, control. That's the core of why she semi-unconsciously creates her sitcom dream world prison in Westview. She is at a point of instability and grief in her life, and the Hex becomes her coping mechanism. But it's not an ethical coping mechanism. She is forcing hundreds of innocent people to play specific roles against their wills, inflicting her own grief upon them in the process. Seeing how people reacted to this show as it was airing was interesting, aside from the usual nerdy theory crafting that people tend to get into during shows like this. The show deliberately paints Wanda's dilemma as morally dubious. She is doing an unambiguously awful thing, brainwashing and torturing an entire small town en masse just for the sake of living out a fantasy. But at the same time, she's doing it for an understandable reason, and up until this show, she's been one of the good guys, right?
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
It wouldn't change how they see me.
This character conflict was also present to a smaller extent in Captain America: Civil War, where Wanda unintentionally kills a bunch of people in Lagos and inflicts consequences on the whole Avengers team as a result. WandaVision even references this in one of the symbolism commercials.
Lagos. For when you make a mess, you didn't mean to.
WandaVision wants to put this moral ambiguity in your head, that of a character the audience already knows and loves doing a reprehensible thing on accident, out of a reasonable desire. We see this in audience surrogate characters like Monica or Darcy, commenting on the in-universe WandaVision show and seeing Wanda through the audience's eyes. Monica is an interesting case, being someone who has also lost a close family member to Thanos not long before the show takes place. She takes the perspective of someone who empathizes with Wanda's plight and understands why Wanda did what she did.
Given the chance and giving your power, I'd bring my mom back.
But we also see it in the townsfolk, pleading to be set free, clearly suffering under Wanda's influence.
She's in my head. None of it is my own. It hurts. It hurts so much. Just make her stop. Just make her stop!
The show ends on Wanda leaving the town in disgrace, with just a couple characters acknowledging the good person she might be inside, and most of the townsfolk looking on in disgust. It seems to leave the morality of the situation up to the viewer. Is an abuser so bad if they're acting out of understandable grief or genuine mental or emotional health problems?
Yes.
Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Aurora Borealis?
Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah, this is going to be another DQP was in an emotionally abusive relationship rant, and it's going to stretch into the rest of the video, so...
Sorry.
I've gotten a lot of comments while posting on social media and talking with family about this show, saying things like, "What are they doing? Wanda's not a terrorist," or "She's just grieving. What's wrong with that?" And what's wrong with that is that Wanda is literally robbing people of their free will. But that discussion is already being done to death by other critics as I speak. So I wanted to get into a different character dynamic that hit me a bit more personally.
You can't control me the way you do them.
Can't I? I'm going to bed.
No, we're not done here.
There was a line I visibly cringed at in the 7th episode, where Darcy's catching Viz up with the rest of the MCU story, and she lets this line loose.
What I do know is I've been watching WandaVision for the past week, and the love you two have is real.
To which a jaded DQP on their couch loudly yelled, "Really?" For those of you who have not seen some of my last few video essays, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship not terribly long ago, and it's taken me a long time to get my head back into its own space and out of a lot of its gaslight-induced memory and trust problems. And those are problems that I still deal with a lot. I still find myself giving the benefit of the doubt to people who hurt me, or failing to trust my own memory from time to time. So when Darcy looked at the relationship between Wanda and Vision, one where Wanda wields the power to end or rewrite tough conversations whenever she wants,
I think something's wrong here, Wanda. Yes, I know what you mean.
and said that,
What I do know is I've been watching WandaVision for the past week, and the love you two have is real.
it kind of hurt a lot. It didn't so much strike a chord so much as it tore the guitar strings in half and smashed the instrument to pieces on stage like a Saxon concert. For a show that belongs to two different genres revolving around audience comfort and predictability, WandaVision treads some very, very delicate water. It's a show about grief, trauma, and how those can lead into abusive situations and actions. And it's not like that kind of subject matter is somehow above a Marvel property. Guardians Volume 2 is also about family problems, grief, and abuse, and it still does an admirable job of showcasing the complicated feelings that can arise from being raised in a difficult family. And the hardest part is, I don't even know if I can say with any honesty that what Darcy is saying is even wrong, because many abusers earnestly believe that they love the ones they abuse, if they're even conscious of the abuse they're inflicting in the first place. And many abuse victims earnestly believe that the abuse they're living through is done out of love. How many times have you heard an abuser say phrases like, "tough love," or "I did this thing to protect you"? They say it and they believe it. My abuser did what they did because they loved being with me. Whenever they did something that scared or hurt me, they warped it to make it seem like not that big of a deal, or actively tried to keep me away from family or friends so that they were in control of what my standards of a healthy relationship truly were. They wanted to keep me around. They wanted to keep the relationship going. And that primarily is what WandaVision drew out of me. Wanda brainwashes a small town, invents a husband from whole cloth to control, and spends the last episode turning into a satanic supervillain, all for the sake of what Vision once called love everlasting. It was difficult watching Wanda just fly away from Westview, facing no real consequences, inflicting a downright terrifying spell on the series' antagonist right before an audience point of view character says to her,
"They'll never know what you sacrificed for them."
The show left me feeling a lot of those same powerless emotions that I felt back in the abusive situation, and I've gotta ask, to what end? Many have praised this show as being an important exploration of grief after a whole year plus of it, and while it does show the possible abusive side effects of said grief, it still refuses to give Wanda consequences to face from the trauma she inflicted, and still inflicts as the show draws to a close. By the time the last credits roll, Agatha is still under the same oppressive brainwashing that the town was. Like, I can't stress enough how much the last beat with Agatha bugs me. This town undoubtedly sees her as the hero in that fight. Like, yeah, she wants to learn more about Wanda's power and probably take control of it, but, like, you've spent this entire show going into the morality of Wanda's brainwashing, only to have her inflict it on Agatha as some sort of cathartic release. It just... Ugh. Life is never as simple as just hunting down an abuser and bringing them to justice, and it's also never as simple as forgiving one and letting them go. Guardians Volume 2 actually handled that really well. Who a person is willing to forgive is subjective to them, as is whether an abuser is able to recognize their mistakes and grow. But the last time a sympathetic abuser character in this universe refused to improve, he was brutally and righteously hunted down.
I went for that.
Twice. Like, you're not supposed to forgive an abuser if they're still abusing people. I hate to be that guy, but you're not supposed to look at a supervillain finally donning their makeup and embracing their identity as a moment of triumph, especially when they're still going to be evil on purpose.
Seymour! The house is on fire!
No, Mother, it's just the Northern Lights.
Well, Seymour, you are an odd fellow, but I must say, you steam a good ham.